Let's get into that main topic number one. And our first main topic today gets submitted to us by Gary Middlemen, who writes, "Hey, John and team. I was just reading an interview with Chris Evans talking about Marvel and the MCU, and the issue of Marvel movies and Oscars came up. He seems to think more Marvel movies should have got major Oscar nominations. The MCU is my favorite thing in movies, but honestly, I'm not really sure I agree with him. What do you think? Has the MCU been snubbed? Thanks, and have a great day, sir." All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yes, that actually has been a big topic of conversation for a while. Has been ever since, especially once the MCU started finding its real groove and getting all that massive momentum going. Why hasn't there been more Oscar love? Should there have been more Oscar love? And you know, Chris Evans kind of brought that up. And this is what Chris Evans said. He said, look, there is enormous thought and consideration that goes into these story arcs. He ain't wrong. If you take the Marvel moniker off those movies and characters that aren't identifiable from the comic books, these movies would be lauded in that way. I'm not saying everyone's a home run, but they really turn out some really impressive movies. That comes to us from Chris Evans. And look, I don't disagree with Chris Evans. Chris Evans is right. One of the great things that has made Marvel wonderful isn't just that they've had iconic characters up on the screen. Anybody can do that. You give somebody the rights to Marvel characters, great. I can make a movie and put Doctor Doom in it, and I can make a movie and have Captain America in it, and that's fine. The strength of the MCU has always been they've focused first and foremost on making good movies. They have not abandoned the principles of fundamental good storytelling in order just to say, just have Captain Stupendous kicking Dr. Evil Man's ass. You know, they don't do that like a lot of comic book films in previous eras have done. And he's right about that. I still don't know myself, though, Rob, if I buy into the idea that, you know, that they've deserved more Oscar love. And you know what? What's funny about it, when we think about comic book films, we often think about how the Oscars ignore comic book films. But the reality is Oscars have often given attention to comic book films. And it's not just for like visual effects and things like that. There have been some significant moments in the comic book movies era where Oscars have given some legitimate consideration and legitimate attention to them. For instance, Joker just recently got 11 Oscar nominations. If I'm not mistaken, I believe it got 11 Oscar nominations, which ties, I believe, for the record of most Oscar. I think it's at least the same amount of Oscar nominations that Lord of the Rings Return of the King got. And it won two of them, one of them being for score, and the other being for Best Lead Actor with Joaquin Phoenix. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse won the Academy Award for Best Animated Feature. Black Panther got 7 nominations at the Academy Awards, including a nomination for Best Picture. First time that had ever happened. It won 3 Academy Awards overall. The Dark Knight, going back a few more years, won 8 nominations at the Academy Awards, winning 2, including the major award for Heath Ledger for Best Supporting Actor. Logan recently became the first comic book movie to get nominated in the major category of screenplay. And and we're not even talking about all the other categories. I mean, this is just a few significant moments. But Rob, I still come back to the fact that, you know, as much as I love the MCU and they were great, for example, for me, I wouldn't have nominated Infinity War for Best Picture. I love that movie. I love it, but I wouldn't have nominated it for Best Picture. I certainly wouldn't have nominated it for Best Picture over Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which I thought maybe should have been there. But to Chris's point, I don't know that Chris is making an argument that Marvel deserved more Oscars. I think Chris is making a point that I do agree with, which is Marvel films need to be looked at more seriously than just comic book movies. They are comic book movies, but they are also more than that. And they need to be looked at a little bit more seriously, because I believe he's right, Rob. When you look at these films, there's underlying great narrative, a lot of great character development, and the way Kevin Feige has fit these pieces together to make the overall MCU is nothing short of really impressive. I don't know, Rob, you hear Chris Evans's comments here. What do you think about them?
Well, I mean, here's the thing. I've always thought that the Oscar films should be films, Oscar caliber movies are movies that transcend time, transcend the era in which they're released. And while I've loved comic books my whole life. I've loved comic book movies, the era that we're in. I love Infinity War just like you do. I watch that movie more than I'll ever care to admit publicly. I watch it a lot. I just find it wildly entertaining. Same with Endgame. But I just can't, as much as I enjoy it, I can't see an Infinity War being a movie like Lawrence of Arabia, or Gandhi or something like that. And even I, who wants to see comic book films win awards, I just don't know if I couldn't award a movie like you said, like Infinity War with the Best Picture. I couldn't. Although I could be persuaded to lean more toward a movie like Logan eventually taking the more comic booky in conception, if that makes sense, the less inclined I would be. I would like to see a comic book movie truly transcend the genre, because ultimately they are genre movies. And I think that the best Oscar films, look, Silence of the Lambs was essentially a horror movie, and it transcended the horror genre. It didn't win, but like The Exorcist was nominated, and it transcended its genre as well. And I think that that's what we want from prestige Best Picture winners, is something that becomes greater than the sum of its parts. And I think we're on the road to that. I don't know what I would. I guess I know it when I see it, but I just don't think that I've seen a movie yet that I would award, a comic book movie that I would award Best Picture to yet.
Right. I agree with you about Logan, by the way. Because Logan, to me, what was that, 2017, 2016? I can't remember. But Logan, to me, was the best film of the year. So I certainly thought, but I was thrilled when it got the screenplay nomination, because that had never happened before for a comic book film.
Right.
And to your point, Logan is exactly that kind of model of a film. It is a comic book movie at its core, but it so transcended just our general understanding of a comic book film. It was heavy drama. It was a Western in many ways. I mean, it just embodied all those things that you're talking about. And I think you're right. I think those examples I brought up are pointing at that between Joker, Black Panther, Spider-Verse, Logan. I think we see that evolution happening, not just with the Oscars recognizing them more, but the movie studios themselves evolving their movies more.
I think so too. I keep going back to, when I think about genre movies, I think about Westerns. And when I saw Unforgiven, which won Best Picture in 92, when I was sitting there as somebody who grew up watching, Bonanza and Gunsmoke and Westerns, when I saw Unforgiven in the theater, I walked out totally blown away. How it was a complete deconstruction of all Western mythology. And when Clint Eastwood says to the Schofield kid, he'll get what's coming to, and he says, "We all got it. We all got it coming to us, kid." You knew that movie was something more than just a Western, and yet it was a Western, but it transcended all of those archetypes to become something truly timeless for the ages. And I think one day we will get a comic book movie that does just that. I don't know if it's going to star Superman or Captain America, but maybe it could.
Well, you know what I'm waiting for, Rob? I'm waiting for a trend to happen in the movies, and it's harder to do it in the movies. I know it's harder to do it in the movies, but when you look at the television medium right now with comic book stuff, to me, the absolute best stuff on television right now, comic book wise, has nothing to do with the big popular IPs.
Right.
Doom Patrol, Umbrella Academy, The Boys. These are the best things in comic book stuff on television right now. And I can't help but wonder, because you just brought it up, right? Like, you don't know if it's going to be a Superman movie or a Captain America movie. I can't help but wonder if once the movies start to embrace, hey, maybe we go back to the old, not doing a sequel, I'm just saying, maybe we go back to the philosophy of the old Will Smith Hitchcock, or it's Hitchcock, right? That's the name of it. Hitchcock movie. What if, let's bring in some completely new stuff, or stuff that nobody knows anything about, and do it really differently. And maybe that'll become the movie that maybe breaks through on that level.
Yeah. Although, I think you're right. There's a comic book. There's a comic book called The Superman for All Seasons. It's a Superman comic that, just like it says, broken into 4 stories. I could see something like that if it was done correctly. If it had the right touch, it could be It could evoke the same kind of feelings in viewers that the Shawshank Redemption does. I don't mean it's like has anything to do with prison, but a Superman for All Seasons is lyrical. It's definitely a Superman story, but it has great emotion to it. And I think if it was pulled off correctly, I could see a Superman for All Seasons winning Best Picture.
All right, guys, the question here for you is this. What did you guys make of Chris Evans's comments? Do you think we are in a season now that we're going to start seeing with the accomplishments of Logan, Black Panther, Joker, Spider-Verse? Do you think we're going to see that happen more? Is it because more that the Oscars are changing, or is it more because the comic book movie genre is evolving even more? What are your thoughts on this overall? Jump down into the comments section below and let me know your thoughts. All right, guys.